Welcome to Monday Movie Madness with
Zach
and Caden.
Today we're going to be discussing how we ourselves would do the DC cinematic universe, how we would line this up, because as you guys know, it's probably not that great right now, and so we just decided it would be a good idea to make our own universes and discuss how we thought it should have been done from the first place. So, I think I'm going to be going first, then Caden will discuss his, and then we will have 3 minutes at the end just to kind of discuss, our reactions and which one we think would work better. Yeah.
By the way, if you don't know what channel you're on Superhero Brodowns. I forgot that part of the intro. But you are on Superhero Brodowns. Sorry, I'm not used to this. So I need to get my lines down.
Alright, so how I'm imagining my universe, I would start out with the first movie just titled The Flash. It would just be an origin story. Barry Allen gets his powers while he's in the crime lab. The lightning strikes him, and he gets his abilities. Now, he avoids using them for a while, trying to still be the cocky guy he is, which I think they haven't played it enough in the movies. I really liked what they did with the cartoon show, and I really want them to do something kind of similar to that. But then one day he decides to use them because there is this maybe a bank robbery or maybe a mugging or something, and he wants to save that person because he realizes that his powers were given to him. They weren't just on an accident, because of the Speed Force and whatnot. So then he decides to save those people and he becomes a small-time superhero. And while Superman and Batman and all these other people are out there, he's not really. They're not really part of the Justice League yet or anything, but they are existing, So they are out there. And he just kind of becomes the Spider-Man of the universe. So he's just kind of, going around the city, has his tiny little outfit that's not very big, not very professional. Mm-hmm. Maybe just a shirt or a sweatshirt with the Flash symbol and a little mask. I mean, nothing too extravagant. And throughout the movie, he's trying to balance his life and his life as the Flash. So maybe there's one scene where he's running, he's on a date with this, really attractive girl, and throughout it he's like, hey, I need a drink, because he has this little phone maybe that has all these different pings whenever something bad in the city happens. The cops, detail what happens, so we get a ping. So he, runs out, has to go save someone, comes back, runs back in, and changes. And, get back into his regular clothes, sits down, does this multiple times, and eventually she's gone. That's just would kind of go to show that he has to balance this, and it's something that he hasn't learned how to do yet. Now, the main villain of the entire thing would be someone such as Mirror Master, someone that's not too big, but someone that would be really interesting and kind of fun to have as a character. So Flash fights him and learns to balance his life, eventually. Maybe he has kind of an Uncle Ben kind of moment, and the Speed Force somehow, kind of telling him, you got to do this, and you have to actually learn how to use your powers correctly. So then at the end of the film, he beats Mirror Master, puts him in the Arkham Asylum, and he goes to Star Labs, actually ends up teaming up with him, and gives him the suit that we all know and love. Now, the next film I named Man of Steel, similar to the other one. I liked the name, but I definitely don't think the story should be anywhere similar to that. So I'm going to say you don't show the origin story at all. About everyone knows how it goes. You get, Krypton blowing up and him landing on Earth. Maybe, when the credits are rolling, you have, an animation of it. But I don't think it's needed to tell the story of this movie. What really should happen, it's kind of like same with Flash balancing his life, but maybe a coming-of-age story. I mean, he's already grown up and everything, and he's had his powers for a while at this point, but he's having to learn that he has to be a superhero, and he has to balance this, putting his Clark Kent on and his Superman on. Because in the movies, they really portray it as two different people, but I really wish they had a thing where it was kind of the same person. It's something that they've never done correctly in the movies. They've never had Superman be a relatable character. They just make him a god. And I really want them to make him a character that, he's saving Earth for a reason. He landed on Earth in a farm, and he grew up just as anyone else. And he should be humble, and it's just something that they've never done correctly before, and I really wish they do that more. So that's what I'm focusing on in this movie. you focus on him working at the Daily Planet and his motivations on saving the planet and his like relation to the Kent farm and just Earth in general. So then while he's working on a story with Lois Lane at the Daily Planet, and she does not know he's Superman up to this point, Metallo attacks, and Superman's main goal in the situation is just saving civilians. Because I feel like his main goal should just be, keeping civilians out of this and making sure it's a fight between him and Metallo. So he, saves everyone in the city, gets everyone out, and he starts finding Metallo. But then he realizes Metallo has kryptonite, and Superman gets messed up. So it ends up Superman goes, he's hurt, and he's beaten, and he goes into hiding at the Fortress of Solitude. There he learns a little bit more about kryptonite and his past, and even here you could give a little hint to Doomsday, which will come in handy later. But, so here you're just going to kind of introduce kryptonite. And then Superman realizes that he's not going to let kryptonite defeat him. Because Superman is someone that has willpower, and I really want that to be a main point in this movie. Kind of this going off point where he's learning, I'm going to have to go off and save people because I'm Superman, it's what I do. So then he ends up getting Metallo out of the city, and they end up fighting in a desert or something. And with only a little power left, Superman defeats Metallo and disarms him. He takes off the metal and the kryptonite stuff. And he gets ready to take Metallo to prison. Everything's kind of ending up happy, except at the end, it's revealed that Lex Luthor was the one masterminding this entire plot. You have like a little LexCorp symbol on maybe like Metallo's metal arm or something like that. I just think that'd be interesting to tie that together. So after that movie, you're going to go into a movie called The Lantern. Now, this is going to be a movie that focuses on John Stewart, that Green Lantern. I think it'd be interesting to focus on him. And he's living in Detroit as an architect. And the movie, while it is an action flick, I kind of want it to be have a political statement, whereas kind of what the comic did. So, in the comics, after Jon Stewart gets his ring, he's selected to protect this racist politician. So then he jokes around and kind of tries to embarrass this guy, because he just decides that it's not the thing he wants to do. And eventually, the politician gets shot by an African-American assassin, as in the comics. So you're kind of getting this thing like, this introduction of politics into the DCEU, and I think that'd just be interesting because I want the DCEU to feel like a real universe. Politics are something that happened in our world, and it has to be something that would be introduced in theirs. And with Jon Stewart, I think that'd be a good way to jump off from, the racism or something like that standpoint. So then, Stewart then realizes that the death was on his hands and his powers need to be taken seriously. So he starts to protect the world against the main villain of the film, Despero. I know it's more of a throwaway villain, it's just kind of a big strong guy, and I don't really want to build the character I want to build the character enough, but I don't want to go super into depth about his motivations just because I don't think that needs to happen, because it should be more about the character Jon Stewart's growth and less about the villain anyway. Alright, next we're going to go on to a film. I'm just going to title it Wonder Woman, just as the 2017 one. And I'm going to say it's pretty much the exact same thing as the 2017 movie, because I thought it was good. I thought it was a little overhyped, but I thought it was good enough to the point where we can take that story, kind of focus on that World War I standpoint, which I really like personally, in the kind of tone of that. But I think you should definitely not have Ares in it at all. I think the climax was just too much for the film, and I want to focus on a smaller scale of stakes until the Justice League film, just because I don't want the stakes to be so high and then have to keep raising the stakes to world domination. I just want to keep it small and kind of, condensed until that point. Alright, so then the next one is going to be the second Man of Steel film, which I will title Man of Steel Judgment Day. And in this film, Lois Lane learns Superman's identity after Clark and her had been dating for a while. So in the first one, we were just building the relationship. And she's kind of really similar to the Lois and Clark show kind of Lois. I don't want to just be someone that Superman has to save. I want her to have character and be someone that motivates him, And so it's in this movie that Superman learns about Lex Luthor, and kind of you focus on that Lex Luthor plot a bit more. And Superman decides, I'm going to take this guy out. So Superman goes to get Lex, and he realizes that Lex has a bunch of crimes trying to be committed at the same time around the world. So this is going to be really a test on Superman's speed, on his strength, on his morals. And so in one place you have like a nuclear missile being ready to be fired at Metropolis. And on the other side of the planet, Lois Lane's about to be thrown off a building. Now this is really similar to the original Christopher Reeve Superman, which is really just going to do the audience a fan service, which I just think will be important. To just attach the characters, and these people, they're trying to make a new universe, but I think we need to connect it somehow to something that people can relate to, and kind of have nostalgia. So kind of the same idea we're having here. So out of Superman's judgment, he decides to save more people, so he decides to grab the missile. Yeah, I know it's not he loves Lois Lane, but I think it'd be interesting, and I think he would definitely choose to save, millions of people over this one woman that he loves. And so he saves them first. He grabs the missile, throws it into the sun, and then he races to the other side of the planet to save Lois, who's been captured. But when he gets there, Lois has already been saved. While going through the air, when Lois is falling throughout the building, there's an invisible figure that just lifts her to the ground. And later on, you're going to figure out this is Martian Manhunter, just kind of an Easter egg for the further movies. So the city is saved, Superman gets Lex, takes him to Arkham to be kept, and that's the end of that film. That Arkham little tag really helps go into the next film called Arkham, which will be a Batman movie. So it's kind of similar to the Arkham video game, just because I thought that game was really successful, and I think it would be a really good thing to do in the movies. Just kind of focus more on Batman's, martial arts skills, have that action, which I thought was really good in Batman v Superman, which was the only part I liked, the whole Batman fighting sequences. So I think when we go there and have it more focused on him fighting these people and working from floor to floor, it would be really interesting, having that detective skills a lot more. So Commissioner Gordon hires him to be, take the prisoners back to their cells. And throughout this, we could give Easter eggs to, Mr. Freeze, Penguin, Poison Ivy, just Harley Quinn, anyone that we really want to set up for future movies after this phase. So eventually, Batman gets everyone out, or gets all the prisoners, back to their cells, and the only prisoners that got out were Lex Luthor, who was the person that planned this all, Joker, Gorilla Grodd, Solomon Grundy, Cheetah, Mirror Master, and Kid Amazo. So this is going to be setting up for the secret society of superpowered villains. And I just think, setting up in this film would be really helpful, because the next film is going to be Justice League. And in this Justice League, it's going to focus on Batman, recruiting all of the members. And I think it'd be interesting to see it from Flash's point of view, kind of, because he's a fish out of water. He's kind of new to the superhero stuff still. So it'd be really interesting to get it from either his point of view or Batman's. And we go from there, and they are fighting the secret society of villains. And we have, the secret society of villains headquarters, and I just think that'd be really interesting to do from there. Then, they beat them, and it goes into, they're just kind of doing the same thing that they've done at the end of Avengers. If they need us, we'll be here, kind of thing. So then we go into the next film called Amazonian, which is just a film about Wonder Woman fighting Deimos, and it's just a film about her protecting the Amazon. I really want to build the Amazon a little bit more as a world, and as this place that's, really beautiful, and I want to focus on the scenery, as well as Wonder Woman's past, with maybe a war that almost happened against the Atlanteans, which will lead into the next film called Aquaman. And in this film, it's just going to focus on, the Atlanteans and, Aquaman living in Atlantis and maybe becoming king, as well as, his kind of rebellion against the Atlanteans. I just think that would be really interesting. They kind of tied it up for the new Justice League movie, but they kind of tried to do that. I kind of want to go further on that with that storyline. The main villain in this would, of course, be Black Mantis, or just a really big Aquaman villain, because I feel like Aquaman, he's not as interesting of a character that they built up in. Right now, people just don't like Aquaman as much, so I think we need to choose. This one has to have some bigger stakes than the other ones. And the next film, we would title Justice League Eliminated. So in this film, you get the Flash, we get Batman, we get Superman, and we get Aquaman. and we get Wonder Woman. We get all these not Avengers, sorry, the Justice.
Different movie.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. We would get Justice League in there, so we get all of the Justice League, and in this movie we would kind of tie up with that Doomsday hint plotted in the second Superman film. So in this, Doomsday comes, and they have the Justice League have to team up again, and they all fight together to destroy Doomsday. And at the end, and I think at this point, it would have enough build to where Doomsday is actually relevant, whereas Batman v Superman didn't make him. They made him just they put him in there just to throw in another villain, and this is the main villain of this entire story. And at the end, Superman does get killed. And I really think, even here at the beginning of the movie, maybe you introduced that Superman was going to propose to Lois Lane, kind of similar to Batman v Superman, just because I feel like that will make a little more, character arc for the character. But Superman dies in a noble cause against Doomsday. And the rest of the Justice League do get messed up a little bit. So you're going to have maybe Green Lantern goes blind. Or Batman gets his back broken, maybe kind of referencing the Bane storyline. So I think that would be really interesting. And now the Justice League are kind of torn up. And at the end of this movie, you would have Martian Manhunter, who is that invisible figure from the second Superman. You would have him be like, hey, the world needs someone to protect it because the Justice League can't do that anymore. We can't protect it. The only one left is really Flash. And even him, he's, still messed up. And so he decides to go off and find a new group of people to protect the Earth. Now, the next movie will be a Flashpoint movie. So this is going to be a couple years later, and you're going to have Barry Allen, and he's realizing that, hey, our world has become overrun with villains with no one to protect it. The superheroes that are protecting it right now are just kids. These people that were metahumans that just got powers and they don't know what they're doing. So the city is getting really messed up. So he decides that he needs to go back in time and save Superman. And I know in the original Flashpoint storyline he goes back and saves his mom, but I think with the context of this universe, it'd be interesting for him to go back and save Superman. So he goes back in time, saves Superman, or tries to, but it turns out that Doomsday still kills Superman, but Doomsday lives in this situation. So then Doomsday is still alive, and Doomsday goes around killing, millions of people in the cities and in different cities around the world, and the United Nations decide to send off nuclear bombs to try to kill Doomsday, and this results in total destruction of cities, and the entire world is now totally messed up. In the other world, there was still some light at the end of the tunnel. Well, in this Flashpoint world, there's nothing left. The entire world is gone. And at this point, I think it'd be really interesting to tie back into the Amazonians and the Atlanteans and have them war against each other. So pretty much they're both saying, hey, somebody needs to take control here if the humans can't do it. So the Amazonians like, hey, we needed to take over before the Atlanteans do. But the thing is, Aquaman and Wonder Woman don't want to do it until they realize that, man, if the Atlanteans, or in Aquaman's case, the Amazonians take over, the world is going to be even more messed up. So they go to war over who's going to get power. And in the same storyline, you're also going to get a little bit of the Thomas Wayne stuff. And I'm not sure how you incorporate that because Bruce Wayne would still be alive, but I want to figure out a way we could possibly introduce Thomas Wayne, or even just a darker version of Batman, an older version of Batman that's just been worn down quite a bit. And then at the end of this movie, Flash decides, I need to fix everything and let Superman die the way it happened in the other universe. So he goes back and he decides to save he goes back in time and tries to, let everything happen like it did, with the help of somebody, Jay Garrick. So he would meet Jay Garrick in the in the Speed Force. The Speed Force would tell him about him, and he would go to a multiverse, another place in the multiverse, another universe, and find him. So, and then at that point, they save everyone, and this is just an introduction to the multiverse. And then you're going to get an introduction into the next movie of Martian Manhunter. He had created this team, which will be titled the JSA. Now, this movie is going to focus on Dr. Fate, on Hourglass Man, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, all these people, and as well as Jay Garrick, Adam, a bunch of people that are going to be, not as popular people, but I think this movie would just be an interesting way to tie everything up for this phase. And so after this phase, maybe they're fighting another villain, trying to restore peace in not only their world, like Earth, our Earth, but as well as the entire universe, because now they have to protect that. And maybe at the end of it, they end up going to everyone kind of goes back to separate ways, or they're going through other places through the universe, and then the Justice League had to regroup, and they have to bring back, and Superman gets brought back, and that creates, this, further storyline. So that was my universe, I think, and I'm going to be done with mine. So I hope you guys enjoyed my little DCEU, or my thoughts on how it should have been done. I know mine was a little more character-based. I like human-based, and I think that would make the character more relatable on each person, whether that be Superman or Flash, and just really build upon that. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and just make sure you guys come back next week, because that is when we'll be showing Caydens, and it's really good, so I hope you guys come back for that. Thanks for watching, and make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz.
And remember, we keep schedule, so be sure to stick around for Monday Movie Madness and Friday Night Fights. We'll see you next time, nerd folk.
Goodbye.